This is the last episode of Why Are We Bullish? And, we've got something new coming next week, but I wanted to take this episode to just do something that I'm excited about and have some friends in the room. And so what are we chatting about this week? Why are we bullish? And once I bring in the guests here, we're going to be going down maybe a bit of a rabbit hole about a number of things, but I think a lot of it stems from a book that a lot of Bitcoiners kind of hold up as something that they've read and that they see value in and is near and dear to them. And that would be a book called The Sovereign Individual. This was released January 1st, 1997. A lot of stuff in it is very prescient. And they called the existence of Bitcoin long before Bitcoin existed, amongst other things. And some of the other things include some stuff that I feel that I'm pretty much at ground zero for and watching come to fruition. So without spoiling too much, this should be a fun conversation. I'm excited to have a few of these gents in the room with me to discuss this and plenty more. But yeah, if you've been a fan of Why Are We Bullish, if you've been checking it out for the last number of years, it may come back from time to time. But I felt like it was time for a change of pace. So let's make this last one a good one. Drop a like on the video. I'm Ben with the BTC Sessions. This is your bullish session. All right. I want to welcome to the stage for the final Why Are We Bullish? Dave Bradley, Joey from Canadian Bitcoiners, and of course, Francis Pouliot, Bull Bitcoin. Gentlemen, how you guys doing?
Great.
Awesome.
So good. Thanks, man.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely.
I can't believe this is the last one.
Dude,
how many years you been doing this for, Ben? You said it's been a while, but how many years? You got to be like at least on year 5, right?
Honestly, I'm not positive. I started doing it when I moved into the house with this studio, if I'm not mistaken, maybe even before I moved. Yeah, it might be going on 5-6 years or something of the show. I'm not quite sure. But it's been around for a while. And I think it kind of started with doing a Christmas special, and then I started doing regular panel shows, and that's what this kind of became. But yeah, so this is kind of rounding it out, but I'm really glad to have you guys here. And Dave, I mean, you've been on this many times, and you're always bearish.
Yeah.
Is that going to change?
Yeah. Well, I've always been bullish on the long term. And usually what we're talking about when we say bullish is like the number go up technology, right? I don't see any reason to change that. Looking at the long term, I'm still very bullish. But, most of the time in Bitcoin, we need to be bearish. Like we spend a lot more of our time in the bear market than we do in the bull market. And there's a lot of hopium out there. And usually I've been very bearish on just the pure consensus on hopium. And that's like, many years in Bitcoin, the only thing that I've learned to be true is that when everybody believes something is going to happen, it's not going to happen. And that's about the only thing that you can predict in a chaotic free market like Bitcoin. So I still have no idea what's going to happen if we're talking about bullishness on price.
Yeah.
But I'm bullish on the world now because, like you said, I think we're starting to see here in Alberta the first steps of that sovereign individual thesis playing out. And it's, for anybody who doesn't know, the central thesis of the sovereign individual is basically that, the technology through, innovations and technology on weapons and money will make it so that the large scale nation state is no longer necessary and no longer useful for us. And so it's going to bring about the demise of these large parasitic institutions that we all have in our lives right now. And very interestingly, the book actually mentions Alberta, mentions that it thinks Canada will be one of, if not the first nations to break apart, because it's such a large, disparate nation with so few people in it.
Mhm.
You know, we have very little in common with the parasites out east that are spending all of our money. And so I think we're really starting to see one of those spooky predictions come true, and the momentum here is crazy. And I think we're going to do it. I think we will be the first domino in one of hopefully many independence movements all around the world.
It is a little wild to kind of see everything as the snowball begins to roll down the hill, because again, I remember reading, if I'm not mistaken, Dave, in the book, and again, it was released for the first time in print in 97, January 1st of 97. And so obviously, and Francis can speak to this too, at the time, there was the Quebec separatist movement, you know, a little bit past that. But if I'm not mistaken, the book makes reference to, again, Canada being one of the first that would likely split apart into smaller, more localized states. And it actually posited that Alberta might be one of the linchpins for that because of the circumstances in and around Alberta. Can you speak to that a bit?
So I did actually reread that passage a couple of months ago. It definitely mentions Alberta. It definitely mentions Quebec. And so, of course, the book was written just a couple of years after the referendum. I mean, it's different circumstances. The Quebec situation is a little bit different than the Alberta situation in terms of sovereign individual thesis, because Quebec has this kind of like ethno-cultural movement. And, you know, it was never meant to be part of, it's kind of an accident of history that it's part of Canada. But to that point, like Canada is one of those made up post-national nations or states that the sovereign individual talks about. But it definitely mentions Alberta. And this discussion, I mean, this is a discussion that I've had with Dave for, I mean, it's probably going on. I think the first time we mentioned Alberta separation in the context of the sovereign individual, I remember that being around 2018 or early 2019. So we were already talking about that. One of my first trips to Alberta in 2018, hanging out with Dave, we were mentioning it. And back then it was a very theoretical, intellectual discussion about, you know, Alberta's position in this growingly centralized, woke, socialist, communist economy, and wouldn't it be great?
Oh no, I'm gonna pass it to Dave. What? Maybe
yeah, like
combo.
Following up on that, like, wouldn't it be great if we separated? And
as I was gonna say,
there we go.
They're shutting me off. I know. But anyway, yes. So I'm very, very happy to see this discussion go to where it is now, and that discussion has accelerated in the past couple of years. Of course, Dave and I had a discussion about that at the Montreal Bitcoin Conference, at the Alberta, the Bitcoin Rodeo. Dave and I actually did two meetups. One of them with Nolan as well, where we talked about this, and it seems to be resonating with a lot of people. And I'm very, very excited. And you know, I'm very glad that the sovereign individual thesis is still relevant. One of the reasons I'm bullish, we're actually translating the sovereign individual in French. I am writing the foreword for the sovereign individual French translation. And it seems that it's now more relevant than ever. And of course, a lot of things that the sovereign individual talks about, one of the main theses is being the asymmetric return on violence and the economies of scale for violence. And as Dave mentioned, you know, not only do we no longer need the state to protect us, the state cannot protect us, right? And this is something that I think we're seeing worldwide. The rising, there's a massive like failed state situation happening, whether that's in Canada, whether that's in the US or in France specifically. I don't want to talk too much about the crypto kidnappings in there, but we've seen this rise of violence against the individual, and clearly the justice system and the police system is not able to protect us. The welfare state is completely collapsing. So all of these predictions are coming true, and people are looking at this situation very confused, very scared. But it's all part of a well-established, I don't want to say playbook, but theory, which is the sovereign individual thesis. So very glad we're talking about that, because it's being proven correct. Alberta's a very glaring example of that, but it's being proven correct over and over.
Dave, I want to ask you one quick question to kind of frame this, because there's going to be obviously non-Canadians, non-Albertans in here watching, listening to this, but are coming at it from the Bitcoin lens. So how would you succinctly describe why they should even give a shit that this is happening here? And, how does it pertain to them, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's an example of the problem that Bitcoin fixes, right? Which is really just the overextension and over control of the state. And Canada is a really glaring example of the misuse of that power and the power that they get from money printing, where, they print money. Not only do we as Albertans, we have higher incomes here in Alberta, we pay more taxes, and we as individuals have more money in the bank. So we get hit harder when they print, right? Like, we lose more value than people in other parts of the country when they print. And not only do they not spend as much to our benefit here in Alberta, like when we're lucky, they actually leave us alone. But the fact is that a lot of the value that they siphon away from us when printing money, they spend to actively subdue the needs and the goals of our province. And so, we've been living under, for a decade now, an anti-energy, anti-progress government that has been all too happy to take the proceeds of our energy industry and redistribute them like socialists to the rest of the country. But when it comes to actually expanding the industry that pays the bills, they've been actively funding efforts to block that. And so, we're in a spot where, from the American lens, taxation without representation, we have virtually no representation. We have no control over the national conversation. We have no control over, who's in power nationally, all while driving the majority of the economy, in spite of the fact that they're trying to step on our necks. And so that's kind of the situation that we see ourselves in. And it's a microcosm of what's happening in every single fiat-based country in the world. These parasites are trying to step on your neck no matter where you are. Here we just happen to be in a unique spot to hopefully do something about it. And hopefully that'll lead to a whole bunch of other countries shaking off their parasitic masters.
I love it. Joey, I want to go to you, because you're in the belly of the beast. You're the closest person.
I'm in the the belly of Laurentia here. I am the Laurentian elite in this group, I think, close anyway. Maybe Francis would be if he was in Quebec, but I'm holding down. Look, isn't the big problem that there's still people who think this is an unrealistic goal on both the separatist side and the sort of Remain side, the national unity side? These people are missing just really one important thing that's upstream of all the other stuff we talked about. And that important thing is the meta used to be participation. And what do you get for participating? Well, you get safety, security, healthcare, social safety nets, education, all these things. When you're getting that for participating, taxation doesn't seem so bad, because, like Dave said, you get representation too. You get some services that you get a say in, ideally, right? This is the way the system is supposed to work. At the individual level now, we see this in Bitcoin, obviously much sooner than anyone else does. Participation is no longer the rational action. So you see people stepping away from money, stepping away from education, stepping away from the food pyramid, stepping away from vaccine schedules, stepping away from, jerking off and going to bed after watching Netflix every night to start families and build businesses and build communities and take pride of ownership and all these things. The idea that this can't happen at the government level because there's too much bureaucracy, too much red tape, the execution is difficult, there's all sorts of laws and regulations. Government is just people. And once you get to a certain threshold at the individual level, you can bet that those people are going to start looking for ways to exercise that power. In Bitcoin, we have an even greater advantage in that we are well capitalized, terminally online, and unafraid to speak our mind, because you can't cancel me. You can't cancel Ben. Francis is already canceled. Dave might be on his way. So it doesn't matter what we say, right? Thanks, Dave. I appreciate that. It doesn't matter what we say. Nothing is going to stop that movement for us. right? And the more this goes on, the more I think that the people who are for national unity are going to feel shell-shocked when it passes. I really do think that if you guys have a referendum, Dave, in 26, it's going to be minimum 40% leave. Minimum 40% leave. I think there's going to be one other thing. You know, I look at the way Carney is sort of playing his political cards. We've all seen these stories about national elections. You know, it would be foolish of him not to try and have an election on the back of this double-edged sword that he's got going for him now, right? He's got the Trump specter still because of the Kuzma negotiation, and now he's got the separatist specter as well to run on. The question is, can he win an election with those two things working for him, or at least he thinks they're working for him? I don't know. But there's a world where the Conservatives win a national election because he overplays his hand and Alberta separates at the same time or in the same 6 months. That is a completely different world, and it's an outcome that almost nobody is prepared for. Nobody.
Well, I think the Conservatives winning the election would probably be one of the things that would make separation less likely.
You think, eh?
Yeah, because I think, you know, there's obviously we have a big conservative base here, and there are a lot of people who felt like Pouliot might be able to save them. And now, you know, a lot of those people are potentially open to the votes on independence because they've seen that, you know, the system is just set up to disenfranchise us.
Honestly, I was a person that I would have been happy seeing Pouliot elected. But it's now I'm seeing very much the side of our dear friends, the accelerationists.
Hell yeah.
And they were like, no, get like at the time, reelect Trudeau, like keep him in power longer, you know, and now I'm like, you know, if Carney were to call a snap election and secure a majority, I think that's the best case scenario right now. I would love to see that because
super majority, Ben. He would win going away. The Conservatives they'd have to basically dissolve every other political party in the country. The only really two that matter nationally, the NDP and the Conservatives, would have to dissolve. They already need new leadership on the NDP side. Pierre would be done, so I'd at least be rid of the dumb TikTok clips that he makes. And you would have like not just a majority or supermajority. You'd have a liberal legacy. You'd have a dynastic government. You're talking 8 to 12 years liberal rule. You're talking Carney for 2 terms and then Champagne or Mark Miller or whoever for another term after that until these other guys can get their ducks in a row. All while Canada continues to fall apart. Like that is true accelerationism. True accelerationism.
And you know, it's ultimately a demographic issue. You know what I mean? Canada is a microcosm. It's a concentration of everything that is wrong with the globalist centralization of power. And of course, things are going badly in many other places. The UK is really bad. Australia is really bad, and France is particularly very bad. I'm not sure what's going on in Germany and those other countries, but I'm assuming it's just as bad as us. But you have to remember, like, Canada was created by the globalists. Like Canada is very different than a lot of other states that have kind of like naturally emerged over time based on, you know, feudal structures or ethnicities and languages. You know, like Germany didn't like manifest out of nowhere. Like Germany has emerged and France has emerged over long periods of time, whereas Canada was really manufactured. It was like a manufactured government. So it's like normal that it's more visible here. Canada is very acute. It's different than other places like Argentina, for example. Argentina doesn't have the mass immigration crisis that we have. France has the mass immigration crisis that we have, but Canada is the only place that I see right now where the country is on the actual brink of collapse. Like, nobody in Australia is talking about breaking up the Australian state into. There's no separatist movement in Australia. There's no separatist movement in France. Canada is like really the most acute and most visible one, and I'm very excited to see what happens. I think one of the things that people are realizing in Alberta, first and foremost, is that you literally cannot vote your way out of this, right? So I think the Alberta mindset is we've tried, and the loss of Pouliot in the last election, I think, was really the final nail in the coffin, where it's like, okay, so after telling us that after 9 years of Trudeau, we literally cannot vote ourselves out of that. And then you're looking at the demographic changes. Sure, okay, so Gen Z having a kind of pendulum swing where a lot of the Gen Zers are starting to become more based and more macho and more conservative, but they're also very black-pilled and they're not involved with politics.
Damn, he's rolling. He's rolling.
I know. We'll get him back in a minute. I've got a question for you guys. What do you think it is about Canadians where we're just, and I see him coming back right in there. Maybe I'll hold my question for a second.
Keep going.
Let you continue. You were on a roll there.
Birds aren't real, man. They're watching me. Yeah, so the Gen Zers are like becoming a little bit more conservative, but that is completely counterweight with just a massive influx of immigrants that are getting Canadian citizenship. And, it's kind of, Alberta, I really, we can get into this, Dave, but I really hope that, of course, I hope that you guys, or we win, because, Bull Bitcoin moved to Alberta. I moved to Alberta before getting out of Canada. So I feel, I'm not Albertan, like, let's be honest, but I feel very much attached to Alberta as my second home. So I hope that we win. But at the same time, even Alberta is flooded with a bunch of immigrants, and who are they going to vote for? And if you look at like the referendum, it's like, who gets to vote in the referendum in Alberta? It's, you have to live 6 months in Alberta and then you get to vote, so we're not voting our way out of this. So I guess people are absolutely, I've seen that on the Alberta kind of like Twitter sphere, on the X sphere and on the social media, people are starting to realize like, we're not going to vote our way out of this. So I hope Alberta wins, but the exit of a region, like of a province like Alberta, is part of the sovereign individual thesis, but it doesn't substitute the exit of the individual from the system as well, right? So it's great if Alberta leaves, but even if Alberta doesn't leave, we as individuals always have that exit, which we all know is Bitcoin is part of that. Jurisdictional arbitrage is part of that. Decentralized communications is part of that. Other social organization structures, whether that's workers groups, citadels, private groups of individuals, offshore banks, digital associations, decentralized or private insurance, all that kind of stuff, and private military, private weaponry. These are all things that are happening at the same time as Alberta. So I actually really hope, I truly hope that Alberta wins. And the difference with Alberta and a lot of other countries is when a state separates, it usually causes a lot of chaos in that place. And for example, like when Quebec was about to separate, the first thing that happened in 1980 during the first referendum is all the rich people left. And a lot of the rich people left to Toronto. And we're talking about all the big financial institutions and the big legacy families that made Montreal one of the wealthiest cities in the world. Like Montreal was insanely rich. Like if you go to Montreal today, it's almost like South Africa. You're kind of like seeing those old bank buildings with a bunch of hobos and crackheads like smoking crack in front of them, and you're like, how did this happen? Because everybody left to Toronto, and that's one of the reasons why Toronto became so big in the 80s, is because all the Montreal money went there. And when it became very, very close in 1995, I was 6 years old at the time, so I don't really remember, but I know that even in my own family, there was talks about what are we going to do with the money? Like we should wire the money, and a bunch of Quebecers actually wired the money to Switzerland. Like that became a thing. People were getting their money out of Quebec banks because we were thinking the fucking Marxists are going to take over because Quebec separatism is very left wing. It's a very like decolonization movement. You know what I mean? It's straight out of the 70s. The Palestinian liberation, the Algerian.
Oh no. Okay. All right. Okay. I have a question for you guys while Francis is getting back in here, but what do you think it is? And I'll bring him back in, but Francis, I'm interrupting your tirade. Sorry. I just had a question for everybody, and actually for you as well, Francis. What is it about, Canadians, I guess broadly, but so many places around the world now where people seem to be voting in the opposite direction of their best interests?
It's not their best interests. They're voting for free stuff because they need it.
Yeah.
It really has nothing to do. The average person has no idea what we've been talking about for 25 minutes. They have no fucking clue. Diminishing returns on military spending, no idea. Drone swarms, no idea. Sovereign individual, never heard of it. Okay, it's a punk band they saw last Friday. Like no one knows any of this shit. All they know is baby bonus, healthcare stipend, new electric car subsidy. People are stupid, and the ones that aren't stupid have no bandwidth to ask themselves, what is this going to look like in 5 years? In the sovereign individual, one of the interesting things they say is like, language is one of the last staples of like a great power. When language starts to become eroded or difficult to find, like a common language. I mean, are we not there yet?
Oh,
like
that's sure there.
People talk about this stuff, but they can't connect the dots. They go out and see, Costco looks like, I mean, I'm not going to be rude on your channel. I'll be rude on my own channel, but Costco does not look like Costco did years ago. And they see this, they make the observation, but they can't jump to the next node, which is, why is it looking like this now? And when did it get like this? And what is going to happen in 5 years? These guys are they're out fucking us. They're outspending us. They're out everything us. And we're going to be this sort of lost remnant, right, Francis? Like that's what I would call some of these people who are like net producers, Bitcoiners, whatever, the digital nomad types. You're going to be looking for your tribe. And, one of the ways you're going to find it is, hey, you got Bitcoin? Like, I'll work for Bitcoin. I'll pay in Bitcoin. I'll do all this other stuff for Bitcoin. I don't need the state currency. I don't need the Carney stablecoin. I don't need the Trump stablecoin. I don't need the Jack Mallers, Howard Lutnick stablecoin. I don't need it. I don't need any of the shit you guys are trying to cage me up in the digital ghetto, the algorithm ghetto. I don't need it. I'm not going to play that game. And until people make that connection, Ben, they're going to keep voting what we would consider to be the wrong way. But it's going to be a foreign sort of idea, a foreign issue for them. No chance they're going to figure that out.
It's just wild to me that 10 years into a liberal government, 9 and with Trudeau, and everybody's like, and the impetus for the ejection of Trudeau was the budget was so bad that his finance minister had to quit before going on stage to tell people what the budget was, and then they hire his economic advisor for the past decade, and then he gets into office and the budget is twice as bad as the fucking one that got the original guy the boot. Like,
wow, this is a first. What happened? Even Ben?
Yes,
I am the captain now.
Yeah, I'm here. I don't know what's going on. Restream is shitting in bed. It's the birds. It's the birds. But like 10 years of that shit. We hired the same guy from the same fucking admin, and then people are surprised. Well, it's weird because people are they're adamant that it's better. Like they're like, oh, look how great things are now, and you're like, what?
I don't know. There's not much.
Look at the main issue. So first of all, there's a sizable portion of the Canadian electorate that is convinced that the United States are going to annex us
totally.
at any point. At any point in time. Yeah. They are so deluded in their and that is making them like double down on the socialists, like woke globalist state. It's like they're so deluded. And okay, so a lot of people think that the United States is about to invade and conquer Greenland, which is so insanely retarded because, for example, you look at Venezuela. A month ago, the meta was the US is now running Venezuela. Like, we own all of the oil, and then like the US is controlling the entire southern hemisphere. The communist government is still in power in Venezuela. You know what I mean? Like, literally nothing. The US is not able to conquer Venezuela and like run it. They're not even able to like step away from being controlled by Israel. None of that has changed. But people are absolutely convinced that we're heading to World War III, and you have Canadian pundits and podcasters. There's articles in the news about like organizing your neighborhood militia in case the Americans and there's like Canadian generals that are talking about getting like nuclear bombs, and like people are absolutely deluded into thinking like we're in this like nation state geopolitical meta. The United States, all due respect to like my American friends, I mean, it doesn't seem to me like it's going really well. Like, they promised us like 10 million deportations, unable to pull that off. They promised us, what was Elon Musk's thing again? The Doge, unable to pull that off. You know, the money printer is not, it's not going to stop. Nothing in the US is changing. Nothing is stopping. The wave, you know, Trump was kind of, and I felt kind of, you know, I probably should win the Fell for It Again award, because I really did think like, all right, this is like Trump's second term. He learned from his mistakes. Like the swamp is gone. You've got, you know, Elon, you've got Silicon Valley, you got all these guys, you know, they're going to turn it around. And then, you know, they're coming after people's guns, you know, in the United States. Like the Second Amendment is also in jeopardy in a bunch of places. So the US is like in no position to like conquer Greenland or conquer Venezuela, let alone Canada, you know? So in the mind of the normie, like it was COVID, right? So let's think about it. It was COVID, then it was climate change, then it's Trump. Then what's the next thing that's going to be? You know, it's going to be another thing. It's going to be the fucking aliens. It's going to be, I mean, Trump's going to be there for like a while, but it's never going to be the globalist nation state organism. It's too complex. It's too much of a complicated problem. And in the mind of the normie, you have to understand, like, and Joey, you made a really good point. Like most people are not like voting against their best interests. They just, their life sucks. Like their fucking life sucks, right? Like everything's fucking expensive. You can't buy a home. You're poor. Like, you know, if you're making like 100 grand a year in Canada, you have a hard time finding a home, which is fucking nuts, right? And like, all right, so you know, how do I make sense of this very complicated situation, given the fact that what I feel is like I'm poor, I'm broke, and everything sucks, and I'm depressed, and like I don't want to have kids and all of that, and like you're just being fed these narratives. Like, okay, so why are we broke? Well, obviously it's because of the tariffs. And obviously it's because of COVID. And obviously it's because of some other thing, you know, you're broke. And of course you latch onto that. And it's and like I don't hate the normies for voting for communists at all. Like and I do have some level of sympathy for them, because it's a very, very complicated situation. And we're stuck in it because these guys vote, right? That's the pure problem. And like when I say that democracy doesn't work anymore and people are realizing that, I mean that like in a literal sense, like allowing the masses to vote, to have monopoly of violence, to have control of the money printer, to have control of the government apparatus is a gigantic mistake. And we're going to a point where at least like the state now is so powerful that they can vote, they can do anything, right? Like if you look at like the 60s, 70s, 80s, you couldn't vote a law to, like a lot of the things were like unenforceable. And even today, like they're bad at enforcing stuff, but at least they're trying. Like now the government can do a lot of things. Like the government can, okay, for example, like they're banning social media for people under 16 in a bunch of countries in Europe. And like they're enforcing it, you know, they're forcing websites to like have the ID scan before you can go on Discord. I don't know if you saw that, but Discord is forcing ID fucking passport scans like starting next month. So now you have the masses of people, they feel all powerful. Like we can do anything. We can lock people in their homes if we want to. We can force vaccinate people if we want to. We can ban plastic straws if we want to. We can do anything if we want to. So now everybody's rushing to be like, okay, now that we can do anything, like what else can we do? You know, like what else can we ban? What else can we regulate? And I think the masses are on a power trip. People are panicking. People are panicking now because they're fucking broke. Like that's. I think like I don't know how it must have been when our parents were voting, you know, like in the 70s or something. Like I can just imagine the boomers just like going to a coffee shop and like discussing ideas about like where the state should go, you know, like should we go with more of a welfare state or more of a this or that, and like having these grand discussions. But now it's just like, dude, I'm fucking broke. I don't like, I need something. I need to latch onto something. I need to believe in something, and I need a bonus, you know. So people are panicking, making rash decisions, and we, you know, as the producers, we are on the wrong end of that because, you know, it's like when you're panicking, you know, and you're what you're gonna do is you're gonna like eat your neighbor, you're gonna like kill your neighbor, you know. It's kind of like a mob. It's like, you know, an irrational mob is gonna just take their stuff. And before, I think like maybe 30-40 years ago, it was more of a negotiation where, you know, the elites are gonna, you know, let go of a little bit of a power, and then we're gonna have a little bit more power. But now it's not a negotiation. Now it's a free for all. This is happening in France, where in France, like the new thing is, all right, we're just gonna take rich people's stuff. Like, and it's happening in Canada. We're gonna have a wealth tax. So I'm gonna end my rant here. and let you guys speak.
I love that. I'm going to play a clip. I'm going to go to a quick break here, but I want to play a clip exactly of the kind of mentality that's taking place. It's a clip from a guy out of New York talking about like the repercussions of Mom Donnie's proposed new rules and laws and everything. And if, people are leaving New York for Florida, for instance, what should we do about that? If, the top 1% are paying 40% of the taxes here, how do we handle that? And his response is very, very telling, based on what the consensus of a lot of the voting populace is right now. So anyways, we'll go to a quick break. We're going to be back in just a minute. Stick around because the clip is pretty wild, and then I want to get everybody's takes on it. So we'll see you guys in just a second. Bitcoin Well is the best place to be buying and selling Bitcoin in Canada and the US. And now with Bitcoin Well Infinite, it's also the best place to be making large buys at their OTC desk of over $50,000. Their white glove service gives you fast transactions, no slippage, and the lowest fees. You can scan the QR code on the screen or simply head to bitcoinwell.com/BTC Sessions to sign up today. And you can share your own personalized referral link to earn commissions. CoinKite has been in the game for years, creating hands down the best and most secure hardware when it comes to securing your Bitcoin. The Cold Card Q is an absolute powerhouse and my daily driver, and it's ideal for newcomers and advanced users alike. The Tap Signer gives you a low-cost, user-friendly option for those just getting started or for convenience when traveling. You can head to coinkite.com and use code BTC Sessions for discounts, or simply scan the QR code on the screen to get started right away. One company I like pointing people to when they ask about Bitcoin mining is Abundant Mines. They were founded by Bo and Christine Turner after losing over $500,000 to broken promises in the mining industry. And they built their hosting model to remove the usual headaches. With Abundant Mines, you own your machines and keep 100% of the Bitcoin you mine. There's no revenue share, no hidden skims. Pricing is simple. One flat monthly fee covers power, parts, labor, and repairs. They also guarantee uptime. If a machine goes down, their hash rate redirect system routes hash power from their fleet, so earnings don't just stop, and every machine is insured at full replacement value. Everything is hosted in the US, powered by Hydro, and mining equipment may qualify for 100% year one bonus depreciation. Learn more at abundantmines.com/sessions. All right, we got to watch this clip. This guy out of New York. It is.
Of course, he fucking looks like. I can't believe it. Just like you don't even have to. I was gonna say something before you went to the break.
How do you feel
right away,
Joey? Tell me how you really feel. Yeah, let's take a listen to this dude. I'm sure he's got a lot of valuable input to give. Oh, if I can get the
millionaires, they're going to leave the city, and the top 1% pays 40% of the taxes in the city. Yeah. So what happens if they leave? What's your response?
Well, that's what I would say. It's like we should take their business and we run it like for our, like the city ourselves.
So if they take their business to Florida, you feel like you can make it, keep it here?
I mean, they can't leave the building. They can't like just bring their whole entire workforce to Florida, right? They can't bring all of like the resources that they have to like build the business here to Florida, right? That's a whole thing. And that's where you would even say, like, if we're building a real movement, right, to like stop that, we'd also like make it illegal for them to like actually like leave, right? We would fine them to hell if they're gonna try to like abandon their property here, right? Because clearly people do need to work, right? People do need to like, make a living. So
what do you think?
So, Joey, I feel like you might be passionate about.
I mean, I will give you. It's funny you brought that clip up because I follow a guy who you guys might know. I don't know if everyone watches this guy's stuff, but this guy Louis Rossmann. You know this guy? No. If people in the chat might know him. If you know Louis Rossmann, like leave a comment, whatever. Tell people where to find his videos because I'm not on YouTube right now, but. This guy ran a computer repair service in New York for a long time and he became a big proponent of right to repair, specifically in Apple products. Apple tried to shut him down a bunch of times and he fought and won. This guy did exactly what this high BMI, low testosterone fella is suggesting that people cannot do. He took his business He took his staff, he took his taxes, and he took their taxes and moved them all to Texas. Every single bit of his business, he took them. Francis, I would bet you've done something similar with Bull for some guys, right? You want to go to Alberta? We'll take you there. You can come work for us there. You know, the money will be better. The business will be better. Everything will be better. Dave, you may have done the same thing in the past. I don't know. But everyone the thing is, like, this guy doesn't understand that people with resources will guard those resources. Like, they will do whatever it takes. Unlike this fella, who has clearly no idea the damage he is doing in the short term to himself long term. These business owners understand that even short-term pain, regardless of almost what level, avoiding Mamdani and his ilk saying, we're going to keep your business, seize your resources, seize your capital, redistribute it to, you know, junkies, immigrants, and Democrats. Like that's unpalatable. And so people will take a 20% hit and take another year to rebuild their business, because people who've done it once, if they know anything about themselves, what do they know, Francis and Dave? They can do it again. And this guy has no idea because he's never done it. He doesn't have the cut of his jib does not allow him to have that vision. And it shows, much like many people in government who have never built something. He doesn't understand what it means to have your resources and hard work targeted. People will go to many lengths to do the things that he's saying cannot be done. And he will find out the hard way, I think, at some point, that taxes ain't free. They ain't free.
So the fact that this guy exists and that this viewpoint is able to exist is a testament to the sheer greatness of man, that we have been able to create so much in Western society, so much excess, that this person is able to live a comfortable life so divorced from reality, right? And this is why we see so many liberal voters in Toronto, is because it is very comfortable to live on the free money that Alberta sends out east, right? There's a vast amount of there's a vast comfortable space in the middle of society where you can live without providing any real value to the world right now. And where my optimism comes in is that, one, this comfortable space funded by all the money they can steal is shrinking, because, you know, they're stealing too much money now, and it's starting to stifle the advancement of the real economy that pays for all this shit, right? And the other side of it is that while this comfortable space that funds the soccer mom lifestyle and the barista political entitlement fund, while that's continuing, the ivory tower bureaucrats that are running all this shit are really turning into like cartoon supervillains. And it's like every time they turn around, they're doing something absolutely moronic. You know, they're just killing the ostriches, or, you know, it's something every week. Literally every week there's some drastic abuse of the rights of the individual happening in the Western world. And every time they do that, they're waking up a few of those people who are on the fringes of the bubble of comfort in the middle. And those people are waking up to the fact that this massive, unprecedented, centralized theft is not okay. You know, once you're no longer in the bubble that is having your existence sustained by the theft, suddenly the theft looks a lot less appealing. And, you know, but that the fact that guy exists is a testament to the fact that there is still a very large bubble like that. It's in big cities, it's in the liberal cities primarily, and it's in the cities that have been able to position themselves closer to the financial spigot, right? It's the Cantillon effect really floating the boats of all of these parasites to the point where, you know, they can literally believe that the solution is just take the money away. And it reminds me of an Elon Musk quote, which is not a very profound quote, but a really direct version of this. It's like, I got news for you. If nobody builds the stuff, there's not going to be any stuff. And so you can no longer just assume that there will be stuff to steal from your neighbor forever. And, you know, your neighbor's running out of stuff. So.
Yeah.
And like this guy is obviously very cartoonish. So he's a great example. However, I would venture that if you put this guy in like a group of 30 people and he has this like spiel, I don't think anybody in that group of 30 people would be like as cartoonishly stupid and like advocate so passionately for a Marxist takeover and literally the assassination of business people, because what he's arguing is a very small step removed from let's just fucking kill them. You know, like when he says we will stop them from exiting the building and we will take their business and we would make it illegal for them to leave. What he's obviously saying is like, if they resist, we should fucking kill them. So not everybody will explicitly agree to let's kill the rich people. However, I think like very few people would challenge him in so all it needs is like people might even think that that's reasonable, you know, and it's like, well, you know, maybe we shouldn't actually like kill them, maybe we should just imprison them, or you know, maybe we should just give them a fine, or maybe we should let them keep the company but like have a supervisor, like let them run the company. And like and you know, there's actually two guys at Bull Bitcoin, JJ and Sounds, which have been running a podcast for the last year and a half. It's about exile. It's about fiscal exile. It's about people leaving France to live their lives, and they have one guest a week. And I've been watching it, obviously, and it's been really mind expanding to see like people are leaving France.
France is on a roll consistently in short spurts. All right, people are leaving. People are leaving France like crazy. All the entrepreneurs are leaving France, and France is worse than Canada in that effect. It's not as I would say fragile as Canada, because France has, you know, 300 years of brainwashing behind it. So the Republic is still not dissolving entirely like Canada is, but people are leaving, and it's been really crazy. Like a lot of people that I know are leaving France, and then in France, obviously, the new meta is like Louis Vuitton. Like we will, like the communists are saying in France, which are in power, like there's a communist coalition in France. They are saying openly, we can just take Louis Vuitton. Like, why don't we just take Louis Vuitton? Louis Vuitton is saying that they're going to leave France and go to the United States, but like, what if we just took it and rent? And the Louis Vuitton is like, you know, LVMH. It's like one of the biggest companies in the entire world. I mean, it's like a top 10, I don't know, top 15 or something company that owns, I don't know, 100 brands and in tons of industries, and they are legitimately suggesting that they can run it. And another thing that's interesting about the New Yorkers, it's like, guys, Quebec is really not that far. Like Quebec is very, very close to New York, and I'm still shocked that Quebec is one of those experiments, which is kind of like in the rest of Canada, but Quebec is even worse, where the government is actually owner of a lot of industries. Like we have a massive electric vehicle industry in Quebec, which is insane because it has produced literally zero electric vehicles and like batteries and electric buses and electric SKUs. I think that the entire investment of the government in the EV industry is some insane amount, like $40 billion. It has yet to produce a single fucking functioning vehicle. And that was essentially like, oh, so, you know, the Americans are building their trucks in the US. Like, fuck that. We're going to build our own EV trucks. Like, we can do it as a state. Even despite this, like, massive failure, like the mindset has not changed. Ben is gone. Ben is back.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So these guys are coming for us. Like when they say, we can take their stuff, we can stop them from leaving. Who is the they that they're referring to? It's literally all of us, because, you know, in their minds, it's like a cartoonish, like monopoly, you know, like pig capitalist figure that's running his, you know, automobile empire out of, you know, his penthouse. But actually, like what actually drives the economy and the rich people in the net producers, most of that is literally just people like us. Like, you know, we run small businesses, we run you know, we have like, you know, in between 3 to, you know, 50 employees, that kind of stuff. So there's a lot more of us than like, and, you know, the rich people also, the very, very, very rich, powerful people like the Bombardiers and all these guys, like they're in on it. You know, they're like they're in on it as well. You know what I mean? Like they're probably on the same team as this guy. You know what I mean? Because they're like, well, you know, like we are able to channel the state in a way where, like they're appropriating themselves like the woke globalist thing because they're using that to their advantage. like Carney's company, whatever it's called, it was in Claridge.
Brookfield.
Brookfield, yeah, like all of these like big financial institutions, these big companies, the power corporations, and I don't know what the fuck is going on in Ontario. I don't know what's in Ontario at all, actually. But like the big companies in Ontario, I'm sure they're like on the side of this guy, because like we can leverage these fucking retards in order to give ourselves more subsidies. So it's like us, like the middle entrepreneur that are getting fucked. And but the thing is, like, he's actually wrong. Like we can move our buildings, and actually it's not that hard. It really isn't. What does it take to move Bull Bitcoin from Quebec to Alberta, which is what we did? It's literally just a bunch of paperwork, by the way. You know what I mean?
It's like move a building.
Yep.
We didn't have to move a building. It's just a little bit of paperwork, and it's a little bit of legal fees. But like that's literally what we did. Like, why did we move Bull Bitcoin from Quebec to Alberta? I mean, there was a bunch of reasons, but one of them was also because, hey, in Quebec, we have two tax authorities. We have Revenu Québec and we have Revenu Canada. So we have to do literally double the amount of work in terms of like taxation. Whereas if we just move to Alberta, we have one taxation authority, and the taxes are much lower, by the way. And every bit at Bull Bitcoin, by the way, is way better off. Like every person that works at Bull Bitcoin is financially better off because we moved to Alberta. And the entire cost of doing that, I'm going to say it's probably like 10 grand. I don't really keep tabs on like all of these legal fees and shit like that. But I mean, it's not a lot. And like when people say, and the one thing that's keeping people from doing the exit is not technology, and it's not Bitcoin, and it's family, right? So why is someone in Toronto, like that is a net producer like Joey or whatever, not leaving Toronto to go to another place and do a fiscal exit? I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm usually it's family. It's like I got my grandparents here, I got my kids
grandparents,
here,
parents, kids, your wife, my wife still has a job, all that stuff, like support system for kids. 100%.
It's not the weather. It's not the weather, and it's not because you like being around people that speak the same language and culture as you, because they don't. You know what I mean? And like that's what's happening in France. Like people stay in France so long. France is a fucking awesome place to live. It's beautiful. The food is great. The landscapes are amazing. The lifestyle is awesome. But now that France has been filled with immigrants, it's like the lifestyle of the French is like completely gone. Like the corner bistro where you have your tartare is been replaced by the obvious kebab shop. And it's like, so what's holding us in France? What's holding us in Canada? You know what I mean? It's like the one thing that Canada had to keep us. It's like, well, there's nature. It's great. It's safe. It's a safe place to live. It's a good place to put your kids in school. At least we have free healthcare. The hospitals are decent. I mean, Jesus Christ. I went to the hospital here in Costa Rica, a public hospital, and it was fine. It was great. You know what I mean? It's like, it was free. So it's like, dude, the healthcare is fine all over the world. Like the myth of the free healthcare holding us here. And now, of course, it's like
fucking wild. I've got to say, like Nathan here, that's always on the show with me. He's got a kid that's got has to have some sort of a checkup thing. He waited 6 months or something to get him in for an appointment. He finally goes in, and they're like, oh yeah, you got to go see the specialist. It'll be 18 months.
Fuck that.
I've got a father-in-law who's got a problem with his back, with his spine, where they're like, okay, try not to do too much, otherwise you might be paralyzed. And then they're like, we'll see you in a year to get checked out. And he goes and he finally gets in, and they're like, oh yeah, we're going to have to, it's going to be another year and a half before you can, so like, don't do anything. And then they finally get him in, take a look, and they're like, oh, you're too old. We can't be doing that kind of surgery for you at this point. And like, it's just the stat of, I can't remember what the year was now, but it's like over 100,000 Canadians or something like that have just died waiting for care since 2018 or something. It's some insane stat.
The number's above 20,000 for the year last year.
And now we just killed them. Now we just killed them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, kill them instead.
Now we just euthanize them.
Yeah.
And have you ever done the math on like how much of your paycheck goes to healthcare? It's about 25%, right? Because like at least in Quebec, I'm sure it's the same everywhere. It's about half of the budget is for the great, healthcare and like social services related to health and that kind of stuff. So assuming that you're in the 50% bracket, which like most people are, you know, you're paying between 35% to 50% in tax. Half of that is going to healthcare. So if you're making 100 grand a year, you're paying 25 grand a year for health insurance. Have you ever looked at like private health insurance? Like
Yeah,
how
it's unbelievably cheap.
expensive that is?
It's unbelievably cheap compared to like what you're paying. I know.
Bro, you can get private health insurance and fly to Dubai and get world-class healthcare.
You're better off,
Like
it's cheaper and faster to fly to Cuba if you need something done than it, I mean, maybe not today. Maybe I wouldn't fly to Cuba today, but you know, a year ago, fly to Cuba and get something done. Yeah, I said on the show, I think, you know, 7-8 months ago or 6 months ago, when I busted my knee up, I didn't like, this is the other myth about Canadian healthcare. I know it's not a healthcare show, but the other myth is that it's like this, it's not a two-tier system. The liberals are always trying to say, the left is always trying to say, this is like a golden goose. We can't have private care because we don't want two-tier system. We don't want people waiting for care. The fact of the matter is, like, I'm not waiting for care in our system. I know people, I have a little bit of money, I have some connections. I don't wait for anything. You know, I hurt myself playing beer league football. 3 weeks later, I get the surgery I need. Other people wait for that surgery for 2 years. Like, there's already 2 tiers. And if you don't know that, it's because you're on the bottom tier, man. Like, these guys, the one thing that, you know, you mentioned, Ben, why do Canadians keep doing this to themselves? Because misery loves company. Everyone's got to be miserable together. You know, like, as long as you're miserable with somebody else and you can share a bottle of $15 wine and eat some frozen hors d'oeuvres from M&M meats over Christmas, like, who cares? Everything's good, right? That's all the camaraderie people want or need. They just don't want anyone else to do well as long as they're all doing poorly. That's the end of the story. It's a crab bucket here. It sucks, but it's the way it is. And by the way, if you tell people that, like, if you tell people, oh man, I had to go to the States to get imaging done, they have no idea what it costs. Like, you tell people you go to get MRI in the States, they say, well, was that $3,000? It was $700, man. I went there, I called them in the morning. I got the imaging done in the afternoon, had lunch in St. Catharines. I'm in Niagara Falls this way. Like, what do you think costs $3,000 for? Because you saw it on TV? Because Christian Freeland told you it's, you know, going to bankrupt you to get anything done if you break your arm? Come on, man. Like, people don't know what they're up against. And they don't know either what it's like to like see the other side of the coin. They've never thought about leaving the tree to test the fruit of the tree that's, you know, arm's length away. Because heaven forbid you lose a little bit of fruit from your tree. This is the whole story of Canada, is this, like, you know, defensive posturing at all times, no matter what.
Yeah, I don't think people realize, you know, yeah, okay, there's definitely, there can be problems in the States, and you hear the stories of, like, well, you go and you go to just pay outright, and then they find out you have insurance, and then you end up actually paying more even though your insurance is, so, like, there's fucked up things in that, and then, like, Canada's a shit show, but, like, it's also not one or the other, right? There are many different ways that things have been done around the world. And sure, I mean, first of all, I would much prefer to go and, you know, in a worst case scenario, have to file bankruptcy and not be dead. But that's not typically not the case, right? Like, you can get reasonably priced healthcare that is actually quite good, instead of, by default, as you said, 25% of your paycheck in perpetuity going to a system where you might just die because it's just not available for you.
Yeah.
Like, that's fucking crazy that we're...
Or you get, like, a foreign trained doctor. You know, another problem we're having now. There was that story recently of that lady in, I think, Winnipeg or something. Her husband died of a heart attack in the waiting room. They couldn't understand what he was saying to them, and they just were like, the triage wasn't done well. Like, I have a young daughter. We went to the Emerge for what turned out to be like croup. And the only way we got seen in that emergency room is because I just said, we're going to leave. You know, the cough has calmed down. We're going to leave. Then someone comes out and sees you. Like, all these different ways you can finesse the system. And the people just, instead, they demand that you just live in misery with everyone else. By the way, it's also like an arithmetic problem. You know, we don't have enough people making money here to pay for everyone to pay their own way. Like, this is obvious, right? We know this. We look at GDP per capita, you look at immigration, you look at the, you know, welfare spend and all this stuff. You know that there's not enough money to pay your own way for every single Canadian. So what is the natural second order outcome of that? It's that if you make money, you pay for you and someone else. It's so obvious, but no one can do the math.
Joey, there would be more than enough money for everyone here, you know, even including all of the unwanted immigrants, to pay their own way if we had a capitalist economy. We're an unprecedentedly resource-rich country. There is no country in the world that is as blessed as Canada with resources. And if we exploited them with the same, capitalist intentions, with the goal of raising the standard of living for everyone in the economy, we would literally be the richest country in the world. And that, I hope and believe, will be true once Alberta gets out from under the crutches of our federal leeches. But there's absolutely no reason that everybody living here couldn't be working in the resource economy. We could run the entire economy on resources, and it would pay for more than everything that is currently being spent. And our liberal masters are trying to take both sides of the coin. They're trying to say we cannot exploit our resources and we have to spend the money.
And we can definitely take care of the very small minority of fully destitute people, like orphans and old people that are alone. Like like getting rid of the state doesn't mean that like we're gonna let these people die and like we're gonna get back to like 18th century England where the orphans are like in a London ghetto like stealing shit and like killing each other. That's a very naive and stupid way to see the world, because if we have enough wealth, like we can take care of our own. And like humans, we are radical individualists as Bitcoiners and all of us, but at the same time, like I'm sure we all are like very community driven people. Like people do take care of each other if giving the opportunity to help your neighbor. Like most people do that, and there's enough people who are willing to help their neighbors to do that. And I was thinking something also, like one of the reasons why there has been no wake up moment is you have two forces at the same time. You have an acceleration of the fiat system, but you also have an acceleration of technology, which are like almost kind of like balancing each other out. Like think of the cost of entertainment. Like think of how comfortable our life is today with just AI. Like AI comes out, and here now you have like a private assistant that can do anything for you. You have Netflix, you have cheap building materials, you have like cheap fiat food, but I mean it's still edible. Like you can like nourish yourself and like not die on very little low cost. So technology is like driving the cost of stuff down, whether it's the cost of entertainment, of housing, just through like tech. And then you have, of course, inflation on the other side. So it's kind of like balancing themselves out a little bit. Although the quality is, of course, like decreasing, but like but if you had like the fiat regime like 30 years ago with the pace of technology like 30 years ago, like we would have revolted. Like of course there would have already have been a revolt, but like now we're still somehow getting like good stuff, and it's hard not to think of like Atlas Shrugged. You know what I mean? Like you still have like the Dagny Taggarts that are like keeping the railroad alive, and you still got, of course, like in our case, it's like the Elon Musks and the big entrepreneurs that are still somehow like putting out new stuff, and people are building stuff in labs and in factories. So it's still at an accelerating rate. But of course, like the problem is when the fiat system starts to outpace like the pace of technological innovation. And like I think we kind of like went over the cliff like in the last 5 years. Like the acceleration of fiat is like faster than the acceleration of technology and the acceleration of business in general. So that's why I think like we're approaching a curve also where it's like there's not a lot of incremental gain in people's lifestyle based on new technology. Like, you have an AI assistant, but you're still fucking poor. You know what I mean? Like you still like apartment, and like and it's cold in the winter and you're turning off your heater. And now we have like, a million Netflix and, like Rumble, and, you got all sorts of cool internet gadgets and, better camera on your phone. But which like 10 years ago used to be like amazing. It's like 10 years ago, it's like even like, between like 2015 and 2020, it's like, holy shit, like cool shit is coming out all the time. Like technology is amazing. Like we have EV cars now, we have self-driving cars. Like 3 or 4 years ago, it's like we have self-driving cars now. And now it's like, all right, the return on those new technologies is like, it's definitely decreasing. And I don't know what can come next, you know, like from like a normie NPC kind of like average person, I don't see any technology or anything coming out in the next 5 to 10 years that's going to make their life easier, better, more enjoyable, you know, other than AI, which ironically, it's like the new technologies are benefiting almost exclusively the sovereign individuals. You know what I mean? Like, and that's where the sovereign individuals are like distancing themselves even a lot more. Like, you know, we had the show, Ben, you know, for at Christmas, like the Christmas show where we were talking about AI, and like, you know, it's like if you're not getting on AI, you know, you're kind of like the permanent underclass, like you're relegated to like the like really like you're just like, you know, I think there's going to be something pretty crazy happening. I mean, I'm not like an AI, you know, retard that thinks, you know, everything is going to be AI now. I've played enough with AI to understand to some degree its limitations, but also its immense power. And it's like we are heading, and this is going to be a big fucking shift, because we're heading towards like millions of people in Canada, millions that whose job is completely completely useless. And in a sane society, I would say that's fucking great. More people to go in the oil fields. You know what I mean? More people to work on the fucking mines. Like we need people going up north and like mining shit, you know? And it's like you used to be an accountant, you know, in some downtown you know, Grant Thornton office or Deloitte or some consultant, you know, that's making like 90K a year. And you know, you're a liberal normie. Like, great, we can like reorient you towards productive parts of society. But it just turns out that all these productive jobs are banned, like they're like illegal. So what are we going to do? How are we going to feed those people? It's going to be very interesting. And like, of course, they cannot use like, you know, like a firm like Accenture or like EY. I don't know how many employees they have, like 100,000 people working at EY or whatever, probably more. Like in Canada, 200,000. Like, you really need like 1,000 people working at EY to like have the same output. Like with today's technologies, what are the other people going to do? I don't know.
The wild thing here is that, you know, you refer to, okay, you know, some person working at like a financial firm or whatever it is, but think of like the real most wasteful jobs on the planet, the government jobs. And think of
they're not going to get automated. That's for sure.
No,
that's for damn sure.
Exactly. This is the point. So for what I think I saw a stat just today, like 4 point something million Canadians are employed by the government. Like 10% of the population.
It's worse than that, man.
And
like
that's
when
directly,
you take
that's like directly.
Exactly. If you take into account people who are like teachers, policemen, hospital staff, people who are on government assistance, people who are paid by government, you know, one way or the other. I want to expand on what Francis was saying. One of the things that I think people are pissed off about, if you want to talk about like where the revolt is going to come from, is that now tech is coming so fast and furious, and advances and stuff like AI and other, you know, what used to be a retail technology is just, it's happening too fast. There's almost a Cantillon effect now in technology too, where the people who are getting it first run away with the productivity, and you're left holding the bag. You're left with like, I can make a picture of, you know, Ben Perrin with a horse body any time of day, but I can't actually like do the AI assistant thing because someone else did that first. And now there's a new thing that he came up with or they came up with, and I'm left behind. And when you want to talk about permanent underclass, that's what permanent underclass is going to look like, where you're using tech from 10 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever. And you're thinking to yourself, what happened here? It's available to me, but I can't do it. And the problem that I think a lot of people are going to have to grapple with, employed, unemployed, old, young, whatever, is their whole life they've been told that the reason they can't succeed is because they can't, the great idea they have, they can't execute it. Well, now you gave them all the tools for execution. It turns out the bottleneck wasn't execution. It was that your idea was bad. And that's something that people are not going to be able to figure out. That like they've been sold this other lie that the reason you're not successful is because you didn't have the tools. Once the tools are there and you're still not successful, and you find out you're actually the problem, you just don't have the, you know, to talk Dennis Miller again, the cut of your jib just is not friendly to entrepreneurship or to building a business or to bettering yourself with tech. It's going to be a tough pill to swallow. And I think a lot of people are going to have a hard time contending with that reality.
Gentlemen, I'm going to hold on, Dave. I'm going to pause you on that thought. I'm going to go to a quick break, and then I'm going to get your continuation of this thought as soon as we get back.
Okay, over the break, I'm going to try and make a Ben Perrin with a horse body.
Perfect. I hear that's lucrative. That's probably the best path to wealth. We'll be back in just a minute. Looking for a simple and secure way to manage your Bitcoin on mobile? AQUA Wallet has you covered. It's user-friendly and puts you in full control of your Bitcoin with secure self-custody. AQUA also supports Lightning and Liquid Network, making fast, cheap Bitcoin payments and asset transfers easier than ever. Plus, it even supports stablecoins, giving you ultimate flexibility. Built on open source code, AQUA is transparent, trustworthy, and perfect for beginner and pros alike. Ready to upgrade your Bitcoin experience? Click the link in the show notes or scan the QR code on the screen now to download AQUA Wallet today. Securing your Bitcoin doesn't have to be complicated or invasive. With NUNCHUK's HONEYBADGER plan, you get state-of-the-art multisig with built-in inheritance planning and no KYC required. NUNCHUK is trusted by users to secure billions of dollars in Bitcoin. The HONEYBADGER plan offers 204 assisted multisig, guiding you step-by-step on mobile or desktop. It works seamlessly with hardware wallets like TapSigner, ColdCard, Jade, and plenty of others, so you're always in control. Plus, with non-KYC inheritance planning, you can ensure your Bitcoin goes to your loved ones. No private info needed. Take control of your Bitcoin today. Click the link in the show notes or scan the QR code on the screen to check out the HONEYBADGER plan. DEBIFI is the best and easiest way to borrow against your Bitcoin in a non-custodial way. Funds are held in a multisig escrow where you hold a key, and the platform allows for excellent hardware like the ColdCard Mark IV and the Q. You have access to flexible conditions, the best rates, and institutional-grade liquidity. If you're looking to make use of your capital, don't sell your Bitcoin, borrow against it. You can head over to debify.com to check them out, or simply scan the QR code on the screen. All right, we're back in. I think Dave, there he is. Okay, Dave.
Are you going to share the screen? Are you going to do it?
No, I actually got distracted and went and made myself another raw milk white Russian instead.
Dave, I need you to make me a white Russian sometime. It's been too long. Gonna happen.
I will.
Awesome. I've got a quick question. I know, Dave, you were about to go down a tangent, but I was gonna actually, if you want to tag in here really quick, but I did want to bring up something and get your guys' thoughts on it.
No, you go ahead. I was just gonna make the joke about the horse.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I'm curious. I know we started this chat on a sovereign individual Alberta separation note. Have you guys at all seen this document, which is entitled "The Value of Freedom: A Draft Fully Costed Fiscal Plan for Independent Alberta"? Have you guys heard of or seen this? No.
Who produced that? Are you about to tell us?
It's the Alberta Prosperity Project. So the people that are kind of like have been largely spearheading the movement, but have now, because of the laws in and around collecting petition signatures and all that, they kind of have to now serve as like an educational role. But basically this maps out like all of the fiscal related questions, like what the hell do we do when Alberta becomes independent? And I had not seen this. This actually came out last summer, but I was chatting with somebody that's part of the local Bitcoin meetup, and they're like, "Have you seen this fucking document?" And in particular, on the 22nd page of this, they talk about currency considerations. I'm going to read this just for people that are listening audio only later. Currency considerations and discussions. Following its independence from Canada and declaration of sovereignty, Alberta introduces the Alberta dollar, the ABD, as its national currency to cement economic independence. To facilitate its seamless transition, Alberta temporarily adopts the US dollar, capitalizing on its global stability while developing the ABD's framework. The ABD would be partially backed by a newly established gold, Bitcoin, and oil reserve. Gold for its international recognition as a store of value, a strategic Bitcoin allocation to embrace decentralized finance, and a newly established strategic oil reserve leveraging the province's vast oil wealth. Oil reserves, securely stored and transparently managed, bolsters the currency credibility by tying to Alberta's dominant energy sector. Together, this backing of gold, Bitcoin, and oil positions the ABD as a stable and innovative currency, reinforcing Alberta's economic resilience and global financial standing. So I just heard about this a week and a half ago when I went to one of the APP events, and somebody told me about this. What are you guys' first reactions seeing this?
like it makes a lot of sense in a certain way. It would be a catastrophically stupid idea for Alberta to separate from Canada and then remain on the Canadian dollar, right?
Yeah.
Like we'd be basically giving them the ability to print money and export the inflation to us in the same way that they do now, but we would literally be getting none of the benefits.
Does that
impede?
Oh, sorry, Dave. I thought you were done. Keep going.
We'd be getting none of the downsides of government spending either. So, you know, this is generally a step in the right direction, but it falls prey to a very common problem that a lot of people run into, which is just the belief that we need better government, right? And you know, this is really just like money backed by nothing is not a good move. We've seen that. We've seen ample proof of that. Money backed by gold has its weaknesses, and we've seen that. And so maybe money backed by a basket of other things would be better, but you're still in just like a trust me, bro situation, right? Like you're like, yeah, we for sure have all of these resources that we intend to back our currency with, and you can trust us to continue to do that. You can trust us not to issue more currency than you know, we've set aside in resources. So there, like, it would absolutely be better, and it might be it might actually be in a window here where it could be a potential powerhouse in terms of global currencies. It could be a lot better than most of the other fiat currencies in the world. But at the end of the day, like it's going to fall prey to the same problems that every other fiat currency will have. And eventually someone in charge will print more money than there is backing it. And at that point, it'll fall apart. And, you know, I don't think it can be a long-term solution, but getting Bitcoin in there at all is a benefit, I think. And what they describe would probably outperform basically every fiat currency in the world as currently set up.
What I would like
rare disagreement with Dave. I have a rare disagreement.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear this. Okay, go ahead.
I want to say one thing is if they're going to back a currency with things like gold and Bitcoin, then I think they should treat those things individually as currency too, meaning you're not going to worry about capital gains and then let the best currency win. That would be the one thing that I'd like to see.
I think that's fucking retarded. I'll be honest. When I saw that on Twitter like a month ago, and I went really hard on I'm actually very concerned that this is a serious idea. Like I think this will fucking tank like the entire separation movement, maybe Alberta itself. First of all, okay, so this is the kind of thing that you think of when it's like 2 a.m. and you're high,
Totally.
you're smoking weed with your buddies, you're like around it. What if we back the oil? Yeah, oil, yeah, and like also gold. Oh, dude, Bitcoin, like, and let's do like an algorithm where we have a little bit of oil, and then the oil price goes up. You just have like a committee that switches it, and we'll have like derivatives and futures, and like, so you know, I think it's totally nonsensical to think that. I mean, if it was just like gold and Bitcoin, I would have said, okay, like just the fact that they're thinking of backing a currency with oil is, for me, like from a macro perspective, that's just fucking retarded. That's like insane to back a currency with gold, with oil, because you can literally we can oil, right? Oil, it's not something you can store in like a government vault, you know, like a multisig or something like that. But also, like, again, and just the thing that I think we agree on is like, okay, so the idea of like, hey, let's separate Alberta and then let's create a central bank. It's like the first thing really that you want to do. You want to create a central bank, and like, why? And like, why? And it's kind of like this thing where Quebec also, by the way, is talking about the Quebec dollar. The separatists have come out with the Quebec dollar. You're thinking like, we're going to do the Quebec dollar, and you know what they're saying? It's going to be backed by hydro resources, you know, like, and I think it's very childish. We're in 2026, like we're in 2026, and you're thinking about, let's create a new fiat currency. Like hello, like, have you not been following the discussion? Like all of the currencies are converging to like 3, you know, like the only currencies that matter is like the dollar, the euro, the yuan, and like that's pretty much it, you know. And like, why do we even, like, why is that even in the prospectus at all? Like, hey, like, why do we need a government? Why do we need a currency? Like, what does it give you to have like an official currency? Like, other than the ability to print it? Like, what?
Mhm.
I mean, when the
Everybody
government
in Alberta has a US fucking dollar bank account. Like everyone in Alberta that does any business whatsoever has a USD account. or maybe not, but they can get a USD account, and like you can have a small credit union, like Bull Valley Credit Union. You can have a USD account, and you can have USD wires, and like if Albertans are if there's no, people will still use the Canadian dollars. Like, why not? Like if you're in Alberta, in an independent Alberta, like why wouldn't you hold a bit of US dollars if you're, I don't know, if you're exporting fucking, I don't know, like roofing material to like Ontario or something, and they're paying you in. And by the way, like all of these, like every currency is like liquid. It's like you can switch Canadian dollars to gold, to Bitcoin, to USD. Like the maximum spread you pay is like between 1.5% and like 3%. So like it doesn't matter if you get paid in US dollars, Canadian dollars, USDT, gold, like Bitcoin or whatever. Like you can convert that to whatever you want. It's not a requirement. And that to me shows me a problem, I think, with the Alberta movement, is like a lot of the people that like were, I mean, I don't know, I'm not that close. I'm like a little far. So I don't know the people like in the APP and like all of that, but I think like a lot of people have been thinking about this for a long time, and they're like not very serious, right? Like that to me, that showed me like that is not a serious project to be like, we're going to create an Alberta dollar. Whereas the number one thing would be like, we're going to create a constitution that lets anybody do whatever the fuck they want. Like that should be like the documents should be like 3 pages long. Like hey, we're going to create a new constitution, and anybody can pay whatever the fuck you want, and like there's no bank charters. Like the Alberta Central Bank is gonna create bank charters, and then and then what's the point, right? And it's not like the people in Alberta are smarter than the people in the rest of Canada. Like the IQ is probably the exact same. So it's like it's a question of circumstance. But like, all right, so now you have Alberta, you have a bunch of people who are voting for this new government who is going to implement a monetary policy, and like what, just because they have cowboy hats, they're not going to be retarded with the central bank. Like they're just going to be as retarded as the people in Ottawa.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. This, that you could sum that up, I think, just saying, if you look at this document, like there's too many, there's not enough talk about negative rights here. It's a lot of positive rights. And I don't want people to tell me what I can't do. I want them to tell me what they're not going to do. That's what I want to see. And, I just don't see that here. Like for me, I agree with what Francis is saying about sort of this, like, it is sort of a high idea, half baked, waiting for the pizza to show up at 2 a.m. Stuff, there's some non-starters in here for me. Stuff like special Indigenous rights. It's like, that's just, you don't, how's that going for you, in Vancouver and other places in BC? They don't take into account demographics changing in their projections for revenues. They're off on some of the CPP stuff. I'm pretty familiar with CPP and the CPPIB. They either just didn't look or didn't read it right. It's great, but this is what you get if you don't pay for the Claude Pro and you just pay for the free. Like this is the kind of shit you get, right? You just run the same thread like over and over again for each section. There's no memory, no artifacts, no deep research, and so this is the sort of output you get. I applaud the effort to put it into a clean looking PDF, but certainly in Alberta there are serious people talking about separatism, and maybe one of them is on this call. I'd be curious to know if Dave's never seen this document. That's really all I need to know about the document. If he's not talking about it, then I view it as kind of this is a pet project for somebody to get on a podcast sometime. Who made this, Ben? Can we name names or what?
I have no idea.
Okay.
It just says Alberta Prosperity Project. It's from their website. I don't know if there's anybody listed at the no.
Yeah. Stuff like, for mail, we're going to use FedEx or whatever. Like mail historically, a little history lesson here on why mail is sort of a forced service. It's because in the past, this is why you can't open other people's mail, by the way. It's illegal to open other people's mail because it was the only way for you to basically message someone privately. Like it's not a right for you to receive an Amazon package. You don't need a fucking mail service that's paid for by government. You just don't need it anymore. That right is given to you other ways, unless Canada Post, takes up arms and decides they're gonna, do a signal clone on a Claude code maybe. But otherwise, this is sort of like I said, this is the free Grok version of whatever the question prompt was for sure.
So I'm definitely very familiar with this. It like I say, it left something to be desired. It was still like a trust-based system. And I would in concept agree with Francis that the government, we don't need another dollar. We don't need another form of currency. And when the government says we need a form of currency, they're really the only reason for them to want another currency is so they can print it, right? There's, if we can get the government to agree not to print money, that's a much more significant step than separating Alberta at all. That's a massive improvement, right? That said, I would rather that the government of Alberta print money and spend it, especially if there's some kind of tether to reality. And on the oil, what they propose is literally government vaults, literal physical storage of oil.
Really?
That is something that nation states do, right? The United States has a massive physical reserve of oil that they lately have used to suppress oil prices, but the idea is that they hold it as a strategic reserve in case the need arises from a fundamental strategic reason, that they can sell that into the world. And if as an independent nation, Alberta should have a massive physical resource of oil. As a massive producer, it would just be responsible to do that. So ideally, you're right, we don't need another currency, but if we're going to have a currency, I'd rather have a currency that is made up here than one that's made up in Ottawa or made up in Washington. That's a step in the right direction. But you might be right, that might not be helpful or necessary, because really the long term will be the nation of Alberta transitions to Bitcoin. And I would hope that, being near the tip of the spear on this independent side, we're probably going to be in a spot very opposite to where Quebec was at in the 80s, where, we start getting a mass influx of the most useful and beneficial people moving themselves and their businesses to a free Alberta. And so, I think we're well positioned in that sense. But I'm not banking on that document. Certainly, it's definitely got the feel of something that wouldn't have been produced at 80 pages long or whatever it is in the pre-AI days.
Other thing too, Francis, I don't know how much longer you want to go, Ben, but Francis, you should talk about this take you have that independent Alberta and all these documents and, potential new forms of government and money, all that really matters is not even a referendum in Canada. It's if the US starts treating Alberta like a sovereign, right?
Yeah.
I thought that was a really good take. You should talk about that a bit.
Yeah, I mean, the US. So what does it mean to be a sovereign state? What do you get? Okay, so UN so typically you would think about something like monopoly of violence over your own territory. So the ability to have an army. Alberta might have some kind of border patrol post independence, or some kind of police force, but the idea that Alberta would have an army, I think, is completely ridiculous. The Canadian army is a complete LARP. Why do we even need an army? If we get invaded by Russia, we're getting smoked instantly. And the US is going to be the only thing that saves us. So there is a geopolitical reality that US already has a monopoly of violence over the territory of North America, whether that's Mexico, arguably also even South America, and Central America. If Costa Rica doesn't need an army, Panama doesn't need an army, Mexico doesn't need an army. None of us need an army. The only army that matters is the US. The spending of the capacity of the US is something that we can never reach. And so the other thing that matters is international recognition. Can you do a treaty? Can you do a treaty between Alberta and the United States? Currently you cannot, right? So it's a federal competence, diplomatic relationships and international relations. And the third one typically is also currency, ironically. So if you look at the high school textbook of what national sovereignty is, it's usually you can print your own money, you can have your own army, and then you are recognized by other countries. But the currency is no longer relevant. The army is no longer relevant. The only thing that matters is the United States. So if, for example, you had, and that's very interesting, because if, for example, you had a vote in Alberta and the result is unclear, right? The the Quebec referendum was unclear. It was definitely stolen. It was close. I think it was definitely stolen. But imagine that, like, you lose by like 48%, and Trump's like, no, actually, like, the elections are fucked. Like, we recognize like Mrs. Smith as like our counterpart, and we're immediately doing a deal for oil and gas and for like a free trade deal with Alberta. Like, it's over. You know what I mean? And like, okay, if you look at it that way, like, how much of a percent of Alberta is required West to be willing to take a risk on that? I mean, if I was like the US admin, I would say, 35% or more. Like, we'll back Alberta. Like, it's a serious movement. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, all that matters is, will the US recognize? Because, like, of course, and let's be honest, like, if Alberta separates, let's say like the vote, I think like Dave's idea was like 55 or something. Like, you think 55 is kind of like the number that you're hoping for. At 55, by the way, according to the Canadian Constitution, like, there is no separation happening, right? Like, the Clarity Act comes in, and it's like, it's not a clear majority. The clear majority is not something that's ever been decided as a number. It's not 50% plus one. Everybody in Quebec knows that. Like, the Clarity Act was specifically saying, like, it's a clear majority. And then there is a mandate for the Canadian government to start negotiating the potential separation of Alberta. But how do you achieve separation? Historically, it's like, well, if there's a vote, then you fucking seize the airports. Like, there's guys with guns that go to the airports and say, this is no longer, airports are federal jurisdiction, national park. You go to Banff, like, right away. Like, if I was like an Albertan separatist, I'd be like, as soon as the vote comes in, we're taking pickup trucks, we're taking Banff, we're taking Lake Louise, we're taking Waterton, we're taking the airports, we're fucking like, we're going to the RCMP offices, we're taking them out, we're taking their guns. You guys are no longer welcome here. That's obviously not that's not what's going to happen. Like, Canada's not going to give Alberta its independence, and I don't think Albertans are going to like rise up and start shooting the RCMP. I don't think that's going to happen. So the likely outcome is like, Trump is going to say, great, we recognize Alberta, and then it's over.
Yeah.
Right? If Trump recognizes Alberta, it's over, like right away. And if Trump says, actually, no, we don't recognize Alberta, then it's over on the other side. Like Alberta's landlocked, right? It's not going to conquer Yukon. Maybe one day Yukon would join, and maybe the Northwest would join. I think that, if we're thinking about like where this is heading, it's not just Alberta. It's kind of like a northwestern kind of like block, which is like eastern BC, northern Yukon, Saskatchewan, and all that, like the conservative, like resource intensive states. But it's really going to come down to Alberta, and I think like it's a very interesting thing also. The U.S., I don't think, has an interest in acquiring Alberta. Like, I think that's a very interesting thing, because why, for example, does Switzerland exists, whereas historically, like, France could have smoked them, Italy could have smoked them. I mean, yeah, okay, the Swiss have guns, but really, like, if France wants to fucking take over Switzerland, they could have, right? And they could have done that, like, historically, like, multiple times. It is in the best interest of everybody to have a tax-free, bank-neutral jurisdiction where you can park your money. Right? If Alberta separates, and I'm American, and I'm thinking like, well, Alberta's tax-free, like, they have no official currency. You can open a bank in Alberta. Like, you're a random dude, you can go to Alberta, open your own bank. You can start a business. I'm going to park some cash there. I think the US has a very strong interest in having another state, which is obviously, like, let's be honest, it's going to be a proxy state, right? If Quebec separates, Canada's already a proxy state, right? If Quebec separates, like, we're going to have military bases from the US in Quebec, and like US companies are going to come to Quebec. Same thing with Alberta. Like, if Alberta separates, the US Army is going to take over the responsibility to secure the airspace. Like, fuck, man. Like, who's going to secure the Alberta airspace? It's like, Alberta's not going to have like F-35s like securing its airspace. No, they're going to do a deal with the US. The US is going to say, hey, like, you guys have a lot of territory. We're going to secure your airspace. We're going to assure, your national security. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. In exchange, we're going to have a free trade agreement, and our oil and gas companies can go to Alberta, and we will give you royalties, for your population to pay for your shit, but just let us pump the oil and let us bring it into the United States. I think that's the way it's going to play out. And like, the main difference that I've seen between Alberta and Quebec is that the Quebec separatists are fucking retarded, because they're alienating Trump so hard And like we are heading for a referendum in Quebec also. Like it's inevitable. The separatists are going to win the next elections. It's almost guaranteed. They are smoking everybody in the polls. The Quebec Separatist Party is at like 40% in the polls. Like it's not even a question. Separatists are winning a majority at the next election, and they are promising a referendum during their mandate, which is the separatists don't usually do that. We're heading for a referendum. Are we winning it or not? I don't know. Probably not. But at the same time, they're alienating Trump, whereas we should have a delegation of Quebec politicians going to Washington right now, like the Albertans have been doing, which is great, telling the US, hey, like, we know what you want. Like, we know what you want, okay? You want access to resources. You want rare earth minerals. You want to secure the Arctic military scape. You want military bases in the north of Quebec. You want to secure the border. You don't want fucking immigrants coming from India and then going to the United States in New Hampshire through Quebec. Like, we will give you all of that. And like, let us pretend that we're a sovereign nation. None of us are sovereign nations. I'm sorry. Like there is no sovereign nation in the era of in North America. It's just never going to happen, right? We just have we live in the shadow of the world's greatest fucking empire. Like if they want to nuke us, they will nuke us. You know what I mean? We're not equal partners in this. However, we can have a negotiation where the US doesn't want to control the territory. It's a lot of work. Like, why would the US want Alberta to become a state? They don't even let Puerto Rico become a state. It's not a good deal for them. You know, like they just want access to the resources and a military alliance. That's it. So I'm very excited to see the Albertans are catching on to that. And also, and you know, a lot of the Americans, they think they're going to take over Alberta. I don't think there's any political appetite in Washington to take over Alberta. But I do think that there's political appetite to have finally like an ally that they can, you know, that they can depend on. And Canada has not been a reliable ally for the United States. And there's a huge opportunity for that. So it'll be interesting. I think that the most interesting thing is if Alberta like gets a 48% vote or 52% vote. I think that's going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah. The other thing about your point about why they probably wouldn't want Alberta to become a state is think of in terms of what that does to the voting populace of the states. So, okay, Alberta becomes a state, and then all of a sudden the Republicans have a leg up because a lot of Albertans are going to vote Republican, say. Okay, well, then what happens to Canada? Like, Canada's fucked at that point. Canada's then going to split apart into a whole bunch. How many of the people that have been voting Liberal for a decade are going to be in provinces that then potentially become part of the US when the Democrats get into power? I think that's it's just like a game of like, okay, well, you added them, we're going to add here. We're going to like, it's just going to be trying to stack the deck by adding new states. I feel like that's where it would be headed.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably not going to go down that path at all. I think, broadly speaking, what Francis is proposing is probably the most likely scenario, that we end up, you know, everything can only exist in the context of power. And the US right now has physical, kinetic military power over all of North America, without a doubt. I think we probably end up doing a deal with them where, you know, we are their capitalist resource hub next door. That seems like it'd be very beneficial for everyone involved. But at the end of the day, one of the core things in this sovereign individual thesis that we're discussing is this asymmetric change in the cost of violence. And so the cost of defense is going way down, the cost of offense is going way up. And you see that in the war in the Ukraine, where you have and Nathan was in the chat saying drones and Toyotas. You know, you've got a Toyota with a $1,500 drone in the back blowing up an $80 million tank. And, you know, I think Alberta will be pretty well positioned going forward, not right out of the gate with independence, but going forward to be a country that actually has a real functioning military that can protect ourselves from the Chinese, the Russians, or the Americans, and that has no international globalist goals. We don't need a manpower force that can go and be like, oh no, they're having a discussion about something in the Middle East or Africa or the Balkans or whatever. We don't need to be able to intervene in the rest of the world. I think most rational people in North America have gotten to the point after, the last 30 years or so of interventionist wars around the world that we really don't feel like that's beneficial to us. But we do want to protect ourselves. Obviously, we want to protect our homes, our resources. And I think ultimately, 10 years after an independence vote, Alberta probably will have a very, very significant functioning military with a very low manpower, lots of technology designed only to keep us safe and maintain law and order and enforce the protection of physical safety and people's property rights within Alberta. That's really the core of what the state should be doing, is keeping us safe. And we're, I hope, in a spot where we can get back to that as Albertans. We should be the first of hopefully many jurisdictions in the world that start treating their citizens like customers. And we can look at them as service providers, and we'll choose the best ones. We'll choose the ones that provide services to us at a reasonable cost, rather than being stuck with whatever parasitic medieval, inbred ivory tower scientists believe they should.
They're inbred too now. It's just
okay, gents. I'm conscious of time. I want to start rounding out, but what I want to throw to you is let's think a little bit to the future here. Let's throw it out. Even, everything's so uncertain right now. So let's say 5 years out, 2031. What do you think life looks like, either for Canadians, Americans, and where do people like us, where are we? Are we still where we are right now? Have people moved and gone to other places? If they have, where have they gone? What does life for a Bitcoiner look like, or a freedom-minded individual look like in 5 years? Joey, I'll go to you first.
Sure. Man, that's a good question. Had to pick me first. I'll speak only for myself, okay? And I'll tell you why I did some of the things I've done over the last few years, and why I think that those decisions will let me stay put until 2031 if I want to. We sold our first house, my wife and I, a few years ago in a neighborhood that was pretty nice when we moved into it, but started to suffer from a lot of the things that first-time home buyer type neighborhoods have started to suffer from in the last few years. Elevated crime. I'll speak candidly. Too many third world immigrants and the problems they bring with them. Culture shock. Started to hear a lot of languages I didn't understand at the grocery store. And you can say whatever you like about, well, this is xenophobic, racist. I disagree vehemently. And I would say that, if you're insulated from those problems, you don't often think about the trouble that they might cause you. There was a shootout in that neighborhood about a month after we moved out. Car driving down the street started shooting into houses where I used to walk my first dog. So we did that right, and we moved to this place called Dundas, Ontario. It's a bit of an enclave already, and it's becoming more of an enclave now, where the housing prices here have not dropped. Houses do not come up for sale around here almost ever, short of deaths. And what we're seeing is a real shift here toward defensive thinking from my neighbors, who I would guess are liberal voters, but are a little older than me, basically on all sides. I look out my window in the morning. To give you an example, there's kids under 10 years old walking down the street to a school nearby, crossing guards, cars driving slowly, people talking to each other. It's the sort of thing that you saw a lot in 1995, but in 2025, you barely see at all anymore. And I think that if you're asking me what Canada looks like in 5 years, I think there's a lot more of that starting. And I don't know what the easy to define set of characteristics are, but I'll give you my best guess. There's no city services, no provincial services, no federal services. The people in the area are some mix of well-off, retired, and newlywed, with basically no sort of floating middle class in between. And there's a defensive posturing in terms of culture preservation. There's very few, for example, striped flags on windows. Very few, for example, signs about all immigrants welcome, love lives here, things of this nature that indicate to me that you're unaware of the problems that are coming from some of these ideologies, not only in Canada, but from all over the world. I look at what happened today, tragic event, I think yesterday actually in British Columbia, where police are on TV afraid to call a man, and instead saying gun person and things of this nature that are, it's clown worldish. It's almost too stupid to be conceived of by a normal person. And yet every day on TV, something that reaches that pinnacle of stupidity crosses the airwaves, and no one cares about it until it's in their neighborhood. I think those things are spreading so quickly that people will realize moving to one of these enclaves is a good idea, and they will pay any price for it. You see this, like I said, in the price of real estate around here compared to places like the GTA, where shoebox condos are falling in price. Places like, not far from me, Hamilton. I live in a suburb outside of Hamilton. In Hamilton, same thing. Crime is way up. Car thefts are way up. Car insurance way up. Home insurance way up. Cost of living way up. And one of the things we've all agreed on tonight is, what are you getting for all this at this point? Parasitic behavior from governments and from hangers-on mean that if you are going to stay in Canada, you are going to get every bit of value from the dollars you give to the government until the day you leave. And what that means is you're going to start seeing these little enclaves forming all over suburbs around major metropolitan areas. I really do believe that this is going to be the way of the future. And Bitcoiners call these citadels. I think this is sort of the first, beta version 1 of the Canadian non-Alberta citadel. And I also think that Alberta is going to be an independent province, state, whatever, by that time, almost for sure. It's nearly a guarantee. The folks in Ottawa demand it, and Dave and the boys are going to deliver on it, I think.
Nice. Francis, I'll go to you.
So in 6 years and 5 years, it's going to be a very interesting spot for Bitcoiners, because Bitcoin is going to be the price of Bitcoin is going to be very high. I'm usually very bad at predicting price and stuff like that. I'm really, really bad. But definitely, I think we are heading for slowly but surely for, I'm not going to say God Kendall, that's so gay, but for an event. So I'm going to posture that Bitcoin's like, around $500,000 or something, in 5 years, like maybe 250K, 300K. So like we're going to be like a lot better off. And at the same time, the situation for the fiat normies is going to be quite bad. So, I've been thinking that for like 15 years that like tomorrow is the day where the whole system collapses. And of course, the system's already collapsed. So that event is not like happening. It's just a slow, gradual decline, which is clearly accelerating, right? So in 5 years, you're going to have a lot of boomers that are getting into their hospices, realizing that these are like death camps. A lot of old people are going to be getting the return of the elevator, like we say in French, of like you've been promoting the state all your life. Now you're retired. You're in this old person's home. It's going to be a very tough situation. So the separation between the Bitcoiner and the normie is going to be very high. And of course, the rich boomer fiaters are going to profit from that because their assets are going to inflate in the same way that Bitcoin inflates. So the divide between the middle class, kind of like 9-to-5 guy, which is like barely making the boomer that's living on his assets, versus like the entrepreneur that is getting a lot of value. So kind of like in Joey's example of like the very energetic, active, like newlywed couple that is probably very based. I think the Gen Zs are going to be a lot more based. So there's going to be a big divide. And I think that whether Alberta is separated in 5 years, I think the odds are pretty high, to be honest. I don't want to be overly optimistic. I think the odds are pretty high. Whether it's 5 to 10 years, it's happening in 10 years. Like I think the next referendum, I think I would say it's probably more like a 30% chance if it happens in 2027. If it happens in like 4 or 5 years, after like 4 or 5 years of Carney, I think we're like over 50%, like for sure. I think like the odds of the referendum being successful increases over time. And which is great for Alberta, because that's kind of like the opposite in Quebec because of the demographic shift. Actually, people who move to Alberta, other than the third worlders, are usually based other Canadians. I've actually looked at the stats. I was looking at like who is Alberta? Like what is the ethnic makeup of Alberta? Like where are these guys coming from? The population of Alberta has like doubled in like the last 30 years or something, and like most of it is from Canada. Most of it is like inter-Canada movement. So who's moving to Alberta? It's you have like the last 10 years, which is like a lot of Asia and Africa, but like other than that, it's like other Canadians are moving to Alberta. So I think the demographics for separation in Alberta are like very good in the sense that, yeah, you have like, you know, third worlders, but you also have other base Canadians that are moving there. So the time is in favor for sure of Alberta. You know, I don't suspect that our lives will be that much different. Just everything will be more acute, you know. And another thing is also like, you know, I'm like an example of the digital nomad. I left Canada. I'm kind of like living off of my laptop, and I'm renting Airbnbs all over the place. And you know, I live in a certain geographic area, but I'm kind of like, I'm ready to move at any time. You know, like if I need to move, and like I've made a situation with my family where if I don't want to do that, but if I have to move, I can move like right away, and it's like not a huge issue. And I don't want people to think that you have to leave Canada in order to achieve that level of freedom for two reasons. First of all, there's what Joey's describing is like the enclave, very familiar to anybody that lives in Quebec, because in Quebec, if you live anywhere outside of Montreal, essentially, you're living in a little enclave. Like there are a lot of places in Canada where you can live in a community, and of course Ontario. Like, you know, I kind of like joke about Ontario, like because Ontario, all I know about Ontario is like Toronto and its suburbs. But you know, I know for a fact that there's, you know, there's really nice. Ontario is a nice place. You know, there's a lot of nice places in Ontario. You can live there, and also we have Bitcoin. So the thing is, like, when you're thinking about like jurisdictional arbitrage, like you're already doing that when you buy Bitcoin in a certain way. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people tell me like, you know, what country should I move to have, you know, low taxation? And I'm like, does it really matter if you have Bitcoin? You know what I mean? Like what? You have money? Like, don't you all own? Did you lose your keys in a boating accident? I'm joking. This is purely for entertainment purposes. But you know, so we do have the tools. So you don't have to like go to Latin America to like separate yourself from the state. I could be. I honestly just love the weather also here. But I could be in Alberta right now, like living in a small town in the middle of nowhere, outside of a big city, and probably experience the same level of freedom that like I have like today. So, where are we in geopolitics? I mean, I think that the social, definitely, I think the next 5 years is going to be a big socioeconomic crisis. I think there's going to be a lot of violence for sure, personal violence. I think Bitcoiners are also going to be a target of violence. We've seen that in France. And it's only a matter of time before the copycats in Canada figure it out. Like, so the third worlders in Canada and also the non-third worlders are going to figure out that you can target Bitcoiners. And I don't want to be too gloomy about that, but it is a reality that we, the French, and I say we because I have family in France and like our business is French and I have colleagues in France, are very, very keenly and acutely aware of. And I think this is going to be something that Canadian Bitcoiners are starting to think about a lot more. And the realization that the government's not going to protect us, right? Governments are not able to protect you at all. And despite what, you know, we've been always saying that, but it's like a real thing. Like the government will not protect you if someone's targeting you to steal your shit. So the enclave thing, and like ultimately what protects you the most, as Joey said, it's your neighborhood. It really is. Like who's the first line of response if there's a crime at your house? I mean, it's your neighbor. It really is. It always has been, and that's the way it is. So I'm gonna end it at that.
Amazing. Dave, you get the final word. What's life like in 5 years?
Yeah. So I put the odds higher. I think the odds are 60 to 70% that we will succeed on this referendum. And those
this one, like the coming one?
This one this year. I think we're going to win in honestly a landslide. And I think a lot of the world is going to be shocked by that. And, you know, Ben, you were there at some of these events. You can see the energy here. You can see the normies waking up, and you can see that, you know, there's a big group of people who are convinced by the very obvious math of the situation. and there are fewer and fewer people here who are held to Canada by their heartstrings, right? So I think 5 years from now, Alberta will be a free country. It will not be part of another country. It will be a completely capitalist country. It's going to be a bastion of capitalism globally. I think we're uniquely positioned for that, and we're uniquely positioned to benefit from that in a way that is less shocking to the world than most countries switching to a pure capitalist system. You know, you've got countries like Norway where they've got a socialist government, but the reason that they've been able to maintain this level of socialism and this level of essentially free money for everyone is because they've unleashed their oil industry, and they're sitting on several $1 trillion in their sovereign wealth fund as a result. And Alberta has far more oil than Norway, and it's cheaper to get. There's no reason that we don't already have this right now. We should be a global superpower when it comes to oil already. And the only reason that we're not is because we're part of this parasitic super daddy organization called Canada that really stifles and holds back our industry. And so I think once we get out from under that vampiric evil force, we're going to be in a position where not only can we unleash our oil industry, we can bring in a massive amount of investment. We've now been sitting in an oil industry that hasn't been able to get significant investment for close to a decade because we don't have a rule of law here. Even when it comes to our basic freedoms and safeties, we don't have a rule of law here. But going further than that, large scale projects like pipelines can get shut down on a moment's notice because the government of Canada does not respect the property rights of businesses in Alberta to any extent. And so when we remove them, we're going to be in position, we can bring in investment from all around the world to grow some of the world's best oil resources in a way that, everywhere else in the world that has this kind of oil is a low trust society, right? You're talking about Nigeria, Venezuela, Russia, Saudi Arabia. These are all places where sort of de facto mafias rule most of the commerce in those regions. And we're unique in that we have that high trust society still in place to a certain extent. It's being eroded by the mass numbers of, as we mentioned a bunch of times, third world immigrants. And I think that's something that we can really drive away with incentives as well, because right now a lot of these people are being paid to stay. And so if we remove those, all the free money that all of the sort of unculturally aligned immigrants from Southeast Asia have been pouring in and collecting, like they're just going to move to Ontario where they can keep getting the free money. And the immigrants who want to be part of a capitalist system, who want to, get a job, they want to work, and they, if they want to go work on in our energy industry with whatever skills they have, they'll be welcomed. We're going to need a shitload of immigrants, and we're going to end up being a hub for all of the most useful immigrants in the world, all of the most interesting and successful people, whether they're Bitcoiners, tech entrepreneurs, energy investors. All of those people are going to be incentivized to move to Alberta. And we're going to end up in a spot where we have more money and more smart people than anyone else. And, business for everyone will be booming. It'll be a gold rush. It'll be the land of opportunity. And what people will be rushing to is just freedom. It's the freedom to build your own business, execute your own ideas without the government stepping on your neck the moment that you try something. So that's the hope for Alberta.
And I'll be the first one if Alberta is on the verge of separation. And I don't want to LARP because I'm far away, so I feel bad, LARPing as an Albertan, in my jungle here. But I am in the jungle, and I'm coming back to Alberta. There's zero doubt in my mind that I'm dedicated, because how insane is it that me and my friends are going to make a country? It's crazy. like we can, and I think we'll all move. And the awesome thing about the Alberta meme in Bitcoin is I really think the marketing for Alberta is so good that if Alberta separates, everybody that kind of went to El Salvador, you know what I mean? Or oh, maybe I should go. We're all coming to Alberta. And, some of us are from, it's not just all white Europeans. There's people from all over the world, but we're all coming to Alberta for a very specific reason. It's why are you going to Alberta? It's because I want to buy a fucking ranch. I want to have a gun. I want to shoot home invaders. I want to build a business. I want to launch a fucking factory. I always want to. I've always wanted to have a metal sheet factory, and like I can do that in Alberta. It's gonna be absolutely amazing, and I'll be the first one. And I don't want to be a doomer. Like I'm a bit of a cynic, you know, where democracy is concerned. So like my beef with like the odds is not. It's just the Like I'm so black pilled. You know, I don't want to be like, I don't want to win the Fell For It Again awards where like I put my faith in the people to rise up and then I'm just disappointed. But I believe that you're right, Dave. Like there's a certain context right now. There's a certain moment in time, and like I can definitely feel that like this is Alberta's moment. So it's up to you, Dave, and the other guys in Alberta that, you know, because not everybody's like the smartest tool in the shed, but a lot of the Alberta people that I've seen, like everybody's got the right mindset, the right energy. They're good, decent people. Like, and now it's like, okay, so we have this shot. Please, let's not fuck it up. Please don't fuck it up. And do it right. I'm so excited for Alberta. And you know, if I need to come back to vote, I might even come back just to vote. Technically, you know, I have a Alberta driver's license still, so maybe I can go back. I don't know. Is that election fraud? Am I declaring that I'm going to do election fraud? I don't know.
Oh, amazing.
I'm going to build a rope factory.
Yeah, I hear those will be in.
I will invest. I'm going to build a futures exchange for rope. That's going to be my thing.
High demand. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me on this final episode of Why Are We Bullish? We got something new in the cards next week. A little change up, somewhat familiar, somewhat different, but very excited for that. What are you up to next week, Joey?
I got something on the schedule, I'll tell you that. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll have to hang out. So anyways, Francis, Dave, Joey, thank you so much. Everybody that's been here watching. We had a ton of people through watching this episode. So thank you guys. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed the conversation. And we'll see you next week for whatever is in the place of Why Are We Bullish? Thanks, guys. Have a great night. See ya. When I first got into Bitcoin, I was overwhelmed. The jargon, the security risks, the fear that one mistake could cost everything. I remember staring at my screen and wondering, are my keys safe? Did I do this right? That experience is why I started BTC Sessions. For over a decade, this channel has helped millions of people like you learn how to use and secure Bitcoin. But I realized something. For many people, videos aren't enough. Everyone learns differently. Some need to ask questions in real time as an expert walks through their setup, their goals, and their threat model. And certain things like advanced cold storage, inheritance planning, privacy, and node or mining setups often can't be fully solved by watching another tutorial. So I built BTC Mentor. I recruited the best Bitcoin educators on the planet to work with you one-on-one. Real experts, real answers, personalized hands-on guidance tailored to your exact situation. Whether you're brand new or building a complex setup, we meet you where you're at and walk with you step by step. By the end, you don't just hope your Bitcoin is safe, you know it is. If you're ready for that level of confidence, then head to btcmentor.io and book a call with us today.